Hello guys, and welcome to another video. First of all, welcome to all my new subscribers, and thank you all. It means a lot, all the support and everything that I'm getting from my channel. Thank you for the comments. I love reading them, and if y'all have any ideas on any other projects you'd like me to do, please submit them in the comments and we'll see about making another video about it. Anyway, so for today's video, we are going to be talking about Captain Smith and what may or may not have happened to him during the course of the sinking. Captain Smith, as you all know, was considered the millionaire's captain, and he was very, very popular at the time as far as ship sailings and stuff like that. But we're not going to be focusing on his career. We're going to more or less focus on what was going on with him during the sinking. And there are a lot of conflicting reports as to what Captain Smith's actions are. So we're just going to try to get some of the story straight, kind of piece together a little bit of his actions on the night that the Titanic sank. The man you see in this picture is Edward John Smith, and thanks to his role in the Titanic disaster and all the feature films made about him over the years, he has become more or less a household name when it comes to talking about the Titanic. Most people who know nothing about Titanic can still look at a picture of this man and know who he is. These following clips are from the Titanic feature film, and it really is a good example of how Captain Smith was throughout the voyage. You can tell that he was very excited and very proud of his new ship, and he was there to make sure the passengers had a good, safe crossing, and he was going to take the grandest, biggest ship in the world across the Atlantic on her maiden voyage, and then retire after a long career at sea. But, as we all know, he never got the chance to retire. Unfortunately, Captain Smith died when the Titanic went down. Now, if you go and read up about him, there's a lot of conflicting reports as to what happened to him and kind of his reputation about how he handled the Titanic disaster. He was going too fast through an ice field, he didn't take the ice warning seriously. Well, that's not really true. He actually diverted the Titanic further south when he learned about the ice warnings. And as far as the Titanic traveling too fast through an ice field, that wasn't unheard of at the time. Basically, what captains did was they had their ships run at full speed until they came across ice. And then once they saw the conditions were more hazardous, then they slowed down. Because, you know, ships were running at a schedule just like anything else, just like things are today. You know, they're trying to stay on track. The night that Titanic struck the iceberg, the captain had been on the bridge most of the evening, and he only returned to his cabin briefly before the Titanic struck the iceberg. And the conditions that night were clear and calm and no moon. And Lightoller had told him that it would make bergs harder to see. But until danger was spotted, it wasn't out of the usual or norm for captains to continue going on at full speed. Now, of course, today, people always like to go, oh, that was so reckless, or he should have slowed down, or, you know. But it's easy to say all that in retrospect, looking backwards. You've got to remember, you know, it's the maiden voyage. He wants everything to go smoothly. You've got the president of the company on board. You've got, the wealthy, rich elite. So, he wanted everything to go as smoothly as possible, and he wanted the Titanic to arrive on time. And if things became necessary for him to take more precautions, he would do it. Remember, he already diverted further south than he was originally supposed to. So, by his accounts and by his measures and based on the conditions that night, he thought that he had taken the appropriate precautions. But as we all know, at 11:40 p.m., Titanic struck an iceberg on the starboard side below the waterline. And the force of the impact was so severe that it sent vibrations and shakes throughout the ship that everyone felt it. And this vibration, Captain Smith felt it too, and not long after the impact, he was up on the bridge. Now, right after the ship had struck the iceberg and the captain had returned to the bridge, his first order was to shut the watertight doors and try to secure the ship, but Murdoch, the officer on duty at the time of the collision, had already done that. So right after that, he went and got Thomas Andrews, and him and Thomas Andrews began to do a sweep of the ship and just try to see what was going on. And Thomas Andrews figured out, he was the ship's designer. Thomas Andrews figured out that the ship was too badly damaged. So he went to tell the captain, you know, we're done. We've got about an hour and a half. Thomas Andrews gave the ship about an hour to live, even though it made it 2.5. So right at that point, they started to wake up the passengers and get the ship ready to evacuate, and Captain Smith gave the order for women and children first to the lifeboats. Now, this is where the conflicting reports of Captain Smith begin. Some things, depending on what you read, say that he was very motivated, very take charge, very, let's get it done, let's get the ship evacuated, a real good beacon of leadership and, being what a captain should be. And then there's other reports that he became really quiet and that the scale of everything that was happening kind of got to him and he wasn't very active or he didn't play a major role in the evacuation. I tend to think it was a little bit in between. I mean, you got to understand what he was probably feeling at the time. He's on the biggest ship in the world, and he knows that if every lifeboat is filled to capacity, that at least 1,000 people are going to die. And you got to think about what role that would play on your psyche. So as I said, there's hit or miss reports on his actions during the beginning stages of the sinking. But at a certain point, Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, noticed that the lifeboats were only being launched half full. So he went and had a chat with another one of the ship's officers, like, come on, we've got to lower these boats better. We got to get more people in them. And they were actually able to find the captain and let him know about this. So the captain took his megaphone and went up to the boat deck and tried to yell at other lifeboats to come back to the ship. We got to get more people. And unfortunately, no lifeboats returned. This is a deleted scene from the James Cameron feature film, and it's a good example of what I just talked about, how Captain Smith yelled into his megaphone to try to get the lifeboats that were launched half full to come back and get more passengers. But even though some passengers and stuff thought they should, the officers in charge were afraid of the suction generated from the Titanic as she went down. So no lifeboats went back to pick up more people. Another account of Captain Smith's actions comes from the Titanic's wireless operators, the people who called for help with the Morse code, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride. Early on in the sinking, Captain Smith came in there to tell them to, broadcast a distress call, let people know we need help. And later on, one of the wireless operators went to the captain and told him about the Carpathia. The Carpathia was the ship that came to save the Titanic, but he told him that it wouldn't reach him in time. So throughout the sinking, the wireless operators kept sending SOS calls and reports like, hey, we need help. But at a certain point in the night, Captain Smith came into their room. It was probably about 1:50 or so, to tell the officers, the wireless operators, that they could do no more, to abandon their cabin. It's every man for himself. The footage you are seeing here is an independent film called The Last Signals, done by the team at Titanic Honor and Glory. And it showcases what I just talked about, the captain coming into the room of the wireless operators and telling them to abandon their cabin. It's every man for himself. So the captain was, in the very end, still doing his duty to try to make sure that some people knew that it was time to plan to abandon ship. Now, the last reports of Captain Smith are during the Titanic's final plunge. In the feature film, it showcases Captain Smith on the bridge. He just kind of walks inside, shuts the door, and just, hangs out in there until the end. But that isn't where we generally think, where most people think he met his end. It's more likely, and this was witnessed and there is evidence about this, that a survivor said that he saw Captain Smith on the bridge with Thomas Andrews in the ship's final moments. And he heard Thomas Andrews say, there's no use in waiting any longer, she's going. We have to go now. So he was last seen with him and Thomas Andrews leaping over the bridge wing, and they both jumped into the ocean as the Titanic began its final plunge. This is the sinking animation by Titanic Honor and Glory, and at this point in the sinking, this is the point where people believe that Smith jumped over and into the ocean. He jumped right off the bridge wing, right from the front of the ship, and jumped into the ocean together with Thomas Andrews. Now, after the Titanic sank and everybody was in the water, one of Titanic's lifeboats had ended up capsizing and flipping upside down throughout the course of the sinking, and there were a bunch of men on top of it. There is one last account that is possibly Captain Smith. There's no way to know for sure. But one survivor who survived on the overturned lifeboat said that at one point in the evening, a man swam up to them and asked if there was any chance that he could get put onto the lifeboat. And somebody on the lifeboat said, "I'm sorry, we can't. If we take any more people, then we'll sink." And the man in the water said, "All right, I understand. Good luck, men, and God bless you," and swam off into the night. And there are conflicting reports like, was that the captain? Was that Captain Smith? No one really knows for sure. So that is the last supposed sighting of Captain Smith of the Titanic. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it interesting, and you could learn another cool little thing about the Titanic's history. Anyway, please hit that subscribe button. Please give my video a like, and of course, if you all have any suggestions or anything I can do to make these videos better or have any ideas for them, please send me a comment below. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.